Iran has recently issued a shocking warning, declaring that Ukraine could become a legitimate target. The statement by Ebrahim Azizi, chairman of the National Security and Foreign Policy Committee of the Iranian Parliament, appears to be more than just a diplomatic threat. According to observers, this is a sign that the war in Ukraine is entering a new phase, where military technology, particularly UAVs, has become the focal point of competition between various regions of the world. Tehran's perspective stems from Kyiv's increasing involvement in a technological confrontation with Iran. Ukraine has developed low-cost interceptor UAV systems to neutralize the Shahed UAV line, the hardware Iran is accused of supplying to Russia during the hostilities in Ukraine. As these technologies began to be offered as support for US bases and Middle Eastern nations, Tehran argued that Kyiv has, in effect, joined a new front against Iran. From a strategic standpoint, Iran's warning reflects a notable trend. The Ukrainian battlefield is expanding beyond Eastern Europe. The war is no longer just a confrontation between Kyiv and Moscow. It is drawing in numerous other actors, from Iran to Western allies in the Middle East. In this context, Ukraine is gradually shifting from the position of a defensive nation to the role of a technological hub for UAV warfare. It is precisely this shift that risks escalating the already complex conflict in Eastern Europe as Middle Eastern geopolitical interests begin to intersect with the Ukrainian battlefield. Looking deeper into the warning from Tehran, it is evident that this was not a spontaneous reaction. Behind the tough rhetoric of Iranian officials lies a clear strategic concern: the rapid shift in the balance of UAV technology in modern warfare. For many years, Iran has built a significant reputation in the field of unmanned aerial vehicles, particularly with the Shahed series. These assets are not overly expensive but are capable of long-range flight, carrying warheads and causing major damage to infrastructure targets. Consequently, the Shahed has become a symbol of Iranian military capability and a tool Tehran uses to expand its strategic influence through partners and allies. In the war between Russia and Ukraine, the role of the Shahed UAV has become even more prominent. The West and Kyiv have repeatedly accused Tehran of supplying these UAVs to Moscow, and they have in fact been used in numerous strikes targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure and cities. These attacks not only cause material damage, but also create significant psychological pressure on Ukrainian society. Therefore, for Kyiv, finding a way to neutralize the Shahed is not just a military necessity, but a matter of survival. Driven by that need, Ukraine began pushing in a different direction, developing low-cost interceptor UAVs to destroy enemy drones. Instead of using expensive air defense systems like missiles, Kyiv focused on lower-cost but more flexible solutions. This was a pragmatic choice, born from the reality of the battlefield, where the number of attacking UAVs is increasing and their production costs are very low. If every time a UAV is shot down, a missile worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars must be used, it clearly becomes an unsustainable war of attrition. Notably, the solutions developed by Ukraine do not only serve the domestic battlefield. In a context where US and allied military bases in the Middle East frequently face the threat of UAV attacks, Ukraine's interception technology quickly attracted the interest of many countries in the region. Some Gulf nations are reportedly exploring the possibility of purchasing these interceptor UAV systems to protect infrastructure and military bases from drone threats. It is at this intersection that Iran's strategic interests begin to be challenged. For years, UAVs have been one of the tools helping Tehran balance power against rivals with greater military potential. But if Middle Eastern nations possess low-cost and effective interception technology, that advantage could be significantly diminished. In other words, the emergence of anti-UAV technology developed by Ukraine risks altering the strategic balance that Iran has built over many years. Therefore, Tehran's warning to Ukraine is not merely a reaction to a specific military move, it is also Iran's way of signaling that they do not accept Kyiv's participation in the technological competition in the Middle East. From Iran's perspective, Ukraine is no longer just a country defending itself against Russia. Kyiv is gradually becoming a new actor in the regional security ecosystem. with the capability to provide military technology to other nations. This shift also changes Ukraine's role on the geopolitical map. In the early stages of the war with Russia, Ukraine was primarily seen as a defensive nation, heavily dependent on military aid from the West. But over time, the battlefield has transformed Ukraine into a center for testing and developing military technology, especially in the field of drones. The combat experience accumulated by Ukraine has helped them rapidly improve UAV and anti-UAV defense systems, creating solutions tailored to modern warfare. As US military bases in the Middle East begin to take an interest in this technology, it means the war in Ukraine is spreading its influence beyond Europe. Technology developed to counter Russia can now be used in entirely different security environments, from the Middle East to other high-risk conflict zones. Conversely, the relationship between Iran and Russia makes the confrontation even more complex. If Iran is accused of supplying Shahed UAVs to Moscow, then Ukraine's development of interceptor systems can be seen as a form of indirect counterattack. Instead of attacking Iran directly, Kyiv seeks to neutralize the technology that Tehran introduced to the Ukrainian battlefield. This creates a new form of confrontation where two nations do not engage in direct combat but compete fiercely through military technology. According to many analysts, this is a defining characteristic of warfare in the 21st century. Geographically distant countries can still face off through weapon supply chains, technology, and proxy wars. In this case, the UAV becomes the central tool of that competition. The rapid development of drones is also changing the nature of modern warfare. Previously, military superiority was often associated with expensive weapon systems like fighter jets, warships, or long-range missiles. But the proliferation of low-cost UAVs has disrupted this logic. With relatively low costs, a small force can inflict significant damage on an opponent. For this reason, the war in Ukraine is increasingly described by experts as the world's drone warfare laboratory. Here, tactics for using attack, defense, and interceptor UAVs are continuously tested and refined. These experiences can then be applied in many other regions, from the Middle East to Asia. In this context, Iran's warning shows they are acutely aware of the changes taking place. As Ukraine begins transferring drone technology to international partners, the war is no longer limited to Russia and Ukraine. It is gradually becoming part of a broader strategic competition where many nations seek to leverage UAV technology to protect their interests. And it is this shift that turns a seemingly diplomatic statement into a sign that the 21st century technological battlefield is expanding rapidly, crossing the geographical boundaries of traditional conflicts. These developments raise an important question for regional security and the international order. What will happen if Tehran truly considers Ukraine a legitimate target? In a modern conflict environment, targeting a nation does not necessarily mean direct military attacks. Instead, it is more likely that forms of indirect confrontation will appear first. One of the most likely scenarios is cyber attacks targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure, operating systems, or information networks. Iran has long been assessed as possessing significant cyber warfare capabilities, and this field is often used as a tool to exert pressure without crossing the threshold of full-scale war. Alongside this is the risk of escalation in the field of UAV warfare. If Tehran views Ukraine's involvement in the Middle East as a direct threat, drone attacks or technological support for forces opposing Kyiv could certainly increase. As modern warfare becomes increasingly dependent on unmanned systems, any expansion of this confrontation could make the UAV operational space more complex and difficult to control. Another possibility that cannot be ruled out is proxy warfare. Iran has an established network of partners and friendly forces in various regions, particularly in the Middle East. If tensions with Ukraine continue to rise, Tehran may choose to exert pressure through indirect channels rather than direct confrontation. This would not only make the Ukrainian battlefield more complicated, but also risk drawing more countries into the vortex of competition. In this context, Ukraine is undergoing a significant transformation. From the status of an attack nation heavily dependent on military aid, Kyiv is gradually becoming a hub for war technology innovation, especially in the drone sector. The solutions developed from the battlefield not only help Ukraine defend itself more effectively, but are also starting to attract the attention of many other nations. And it is this change in role that is causing the already complex conflict to continue expanding into new strategic spaces.